Welcome to another video, and in this video we'll be seeing how to use and install Turso CLI. Turso CLI is a interface where you can manage and interact with the libsql database, which could be hosted on Turso as well as on other platforms or self-hosted. So let's get started. First you need to install the CLI, which is quite easy to do. You can head out to the installation guide and you can grab the command for installation. Here I just grab for Linux as I am using Ubuntu, and I'll grab the curl command to install the binary, and this will install the binary and place it in the certain folder. So once it is installed, it will automatically redirect you to the login page, which is either using it will forward you to a web browser and you can then log in via GitHub or Google. So you can see it has directed me to a web browser, or you can copy the link from the logs there. Or so here you can see I have logged in as my username, which is Mr. Destructive in this case. Or you can also do Turso auth login if that fails for you. So you can, this will again redirect you to the web browser and you can log in via GitHub or Google. Once I am logged in, I can use Turso auth who am I. This will give me the logged in user from the Turso platform. And then you can do Turso DB list, which is just one command where you can list all of the databases. If you have created a new account, this will be empty. But I have been using Turso for a while, so I have a lot of databases. And Turso group list will list out the groups that I have on Turso account. So let me show a specific database from this thing. So we can just grab the name. This whole legal thing is one of the database name that I've created. So you can see Turso DB shell legal thing. So this will open up a shell which will connect to the remote database which is hosted on Turso and give you a shell interface to interact with the actual database. So you can type in the sqlite commands, which is .schema, or SQL queries. Select star from pros, which is the posted table I have in the database, or I can just use normal queries that I can do with normal SQLite database. So that is the thing that we can do with libsql CLI, that is Turso CLI. So Turso has few commands. You can see auth we saw. So there are few major commands, that is auth. So this will be everything related to authentication. Here we saw who am I, the login, and you can also do sign up if you are not created an account on Turso. So that is the auth command, and there are a few more commands like db. We will be using it majorly because this is where we will be interacting with the databases. So you can see here we saw database list, we saw database so it now in fact Turso DB list. So we saw this, so we'll just list out all the database within the account. Like this will be across the groups inside the account. So you will see this is app.turso.txt. So here you will see the actual interface for interacting with the database, and you would see there are indeed there are 13 databases here. So this is the same list that we saw on the CLI. So once you will see db create, so you can use Turso db create. This will create a new database. You can pass in the database name, that is optional. It will create a randomly generated database name. However, we need to provide the group name, which will be the specific groups for creating databases. So here I have 4 groups. I will just create the new database in this top stank named group. This will create a database on this group. And now once the DB is created, you can see that there are 13 databases and now there are 14 databases here in this account. And you can see the newly database created. It is listed in this Turso app itself. So UDB test, this was the database that we created via the CLI. So this command also gives you the next steps that you can do after creating the database. So you can see that we can open the shell, we can create a token for accessing that database, or we can just show the metadata about this database. So DB show will list out the metadata about this database. That is the URL, the database instance, or the version on which the libsql version is running, and so on. So now we can see Turso DB shell. So let's log into this database and interact with the database. So sorry, the database name is wrong. So let me add new DB test, and this will connect to the remote database. And the schema will be empty because this is just a newly created database. We can populate it. We can use it as per the convenience. So those are the commands that we saw for DB, and even we saw Turso DB list, create, and show. So the Turso DB shell command has a few options that you can see. It can provide the query the particular location that will be like you if you have embedded replicas or you have certain copies of the database, you can query a specific location, or you can also provide an instance name, or even directly like query the database using this query. So instead of getting into the shell, you can just provide the query and it will run the query and just exit out of the process. So this is much more faster. This is not creating a connection. It is just this is not a interactive command. This is just providing the output from the given query. So now you would see that DB command has lots of features, lots of sub commands. You can see here we saw create, we saw list, we saw shell, we saw show. So now let's see DB tokens. Now let's see what the command DB tokens does, because tokens is one thing that we can quite often use while creating applications, while where we want to authenticate to the database and provide certain access to the database. See what we can do here. So we can create and invalidate. So we can create a new token or we can invalidate our existing token. So let's do DB tokens create, and now we need to provide the database name. So in this case, I'll just provide the latest database that I created. So new DB test, and this will create the database. This will create a token for interacting with that particular database, and the default like parameters for this token are like, so if you go into UI, you can see we can create token via here, and this is the interface that we can use. So we can say the expiry as none, never, and the permission as read only or read and write both. So here you can provide the flag with -r. This will only give read only permissions to this database via this token. So these are some of the things. We can also do like expiration. We can set expiration to 7 days or any number of days or months using this flag here. And so now we saw a lot of commands in this things, and so locations will just list out the locations where the database is listed in. So we can destroy a database. Those are pretty straightforward, but those were the commands that we will quite often use, and we'll be using it like extensively when if you are trying to create an application or spinning up new databases per instance of the user. So now if we see the URL for this database, you would see it has libsql, and it is the protocol is libsql, and it is hosted on Turso. So if I do sqlite, which is a server side which is a server for running libsql databases locally or any self-hosting service. So once we run sqlite, this will spawn up a libsql server, and we can query the database locally as well. So with Turso DB shell, we can also connect to this same database. That this database was hosted on Turso. So instead of providing the name, you can also provide the URL. So if you can provide the URL, we can also query the local database. So we can say http://localhost 88, and this was the database that we saw sqlite was listening to this port 8080. And we can definitely interact with this as we wanted, because this is a newly created database. It will be empty again. So let me create a table with, let's say, a sample table with users with ID as integer and name as text. So this will create a database, and let me insert like into users ID and name with values, let's say 1. Let me clear the screen, that it will be 1, and the name of the database, let's say ABC. So this will be just a dummy thing that I need to show that this is indeed populated in the database. So select star from user and you will see it has populated the database. So this is a local database that we created in this SQL right now. If we try to, so this is a locally running database, right? So if we try to use it, like if we connect it with the SQLite, so the file resides in data.sqld/db/default/data, and this will have the same thing that we created using Turso shell. So as we saw, this libsql database which was running on using SQLD, we were able to use as a normal SQLite database using this SQLite 3 command and providing the path to that file, which was specific path for SQLD to run server on libsql as a libsql database, which was data.sqld/db/default/data. So that is how we would like to interact with. That is how we interact with libsql databases locally as well as on the cloud using Turso CLI, which is a nice way to interact with libsql like databases. Thank you.